Good morning. Christ is risen. I'm Father Kevin Long of St. Elias Antiochian Orthodox Church in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020, and here are the readings for today. The first reading is from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 14, verses 6 through 18. In those days the apostles fled to Lystra and Derbe, cities of Laconia, to the surrounding country, and there they preached the gospel. Now at Lystra there was a man sitting who could not use his feet. He was a cripple from birth who had never walked. He listened to Paul speaking, and Paul, looking intently at him and seeing that he had faith to be made well, said in a loud voice, "Stand upright on your feet." And he sprang up and walked. And when the crowd saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in Lycaonian, "The gods have come down to us in the likeness of men." Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul, because he was the chief speaker, they called Hermes. And the priest of Zeus, whose temple was in the front of the city, brought oxen and garlands to the gates and wanted to offer sacrifice with the people. But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of it, they tore their garments and rushed out among the multitude, crying, "Men, why are you doing this? We also are men, of like nature with you, and bring you good news, that you should turn from these vain things to a living God, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. In past generations he allowed all nations to walk in their own ways. Yet he did not leave himself without witness, for he did good, and gave you from heaven rains and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness." With these words they scarcely restrained the people from offering sacrifices to them. The second reading is from the Gospel of St. John, chapter 7, verses 14 through 30. About the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught. The Jews marveled at it, saying, "How is it this man has learning when he has never studied?" So Jesus answered them, "My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. If any man's will is to do his will, he shall know whether the teacher is from God or whether I am speaking on my own authority. He who speaks on his own authority seeks his own glory, but he who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true. And in him there is not falsehood. Did not Moses give you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Why do you seek to kill me?" The people answered, "You have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you?" Jesus answered them, "I did one deed, and you all marvel at it. Moses gave you circumcision, not that it is from Moses, but from the fathers. And you circumcise a man upon the Sabbath. If on the Sabbath a man receives circumcision, so that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because on the Sabbath I made a man's whole body well? Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." Some of the people of Jerusalem therefore said, Is not this the man whom they seek to kill? And here he is, speaking openly, and they say nothing to him. Can it be that the authorities really know that this man is the Christ? Yet we know where this man comes from, and when the Christ appears, no one will know where he comes from. So Jesus proclaimed, as he taught in the temple, "You know me, and you know where I come from. But I have not come out of my own accord. He who sent me is true, and him you do not know. I know him, for I come from him, and he sent me." So they sought to arrest him, but no one laid hands on him, because his hour had not yet come. In both of these readings this morning, we have some interesting things to point out. I'm always fascinated with the interplay between Greek mythology and Christianity. And because of the abilities that Paul showed in healing the man who was crippled, they believed that he was, not Zeus, which you would commonly think, but Hermes. Because Hermes is the speaker, Hermes is a messenger, and Zeus is the mighty and silent one, most of the time. But Paul and Barnabas, they both appeal to those people to point out that the gods that they are thinking that they worship are really not true gods. But in reality, a real God, the one true living God, has been helping them and nourishing them and sustaining them, even though they were living in their ignorance. And I find that really useful and very positive. What does he say? He did not leave himself without witness, says the Apostle Paul. For he did good and gave you from heaven rains and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. That God, yes, may be a jealous God, may be a smasher of idols, but he does not despise his own creation. And so even those who walked in ignorance or in darkness, even those people God has rewarded with rain and harvests. So that is the kind of God that we worship, not one who seeks the misery of those who don't worship him, but rather he seeks them to come to him and recognize the beautiful things that he has done for them so that they may give glory appropriately in spirit and in truth. And in like manner, while speaking of spirit and truth, it is also very important to notice that the scholars that are spoken of in the gospel this morning end up sounding more like people who are just murderous attackers. All they want to do is seek after Christ's misery or his hurt or his ruin or his death. It's very interesting to me that one of the first things they ask at the very beginning is the way that Christ teaches. How is it that this man has learning when he has never studied? You know, that's an interesting cause for me, because I think sometimes we tend to hold intellect or what we know in a way that shows that we're superior to other people. I know this was certainly true in some of the schooling that I had, that there were so many people who felt that they had a knowledge that the common laity didn't have, and that made them somewhat better or more adept at being a leader, or just basically up here while everyone else was down here. I think, well, first of all, I think that's utter foolishness. And I'll tell you why. It's for the very, very same reason. There are people inspired by God, who seek after God, who only do the will of the Father, who have never gone to seminary or have never sat down in a Bible study or any of those kinds of things, but instead they just know what is right because it's written in their hearts. They may have heard it from their youth, they may have just known it intuitively, but they show the mercy of God in their fruits. They show living out the gospel even though they've never heard it. And in this case, Jesus is showing the scribes and the elders the wisdom of the Father, because Christ, the Son, and the Father are one. Their wills are intertwined with each other. Their desire for each other is abundant and beyond measure. And so when he teaches, he is teaching in a perfect accordance. He is teaching in perfect accordance with the will of the Father. And so whatever is found in the Old Testament, the Torah, the law, whatever is found there has as its origin the Father, yeah? And so when the Son is doing the perfect will of the Father, it makes complete sense that he would understand the truths that are spoken in those books, probably even better than someone who studied their entire life. Your brains don't save you. What saves you is your love for God and your desire to do his will in all things. It is important to study. I don't deny that. I think it's, since God gave us brains, we should use them. But God also gave us other muscles that we can do other things. And all of those things should be done towards the glory of God. So when we think about our activities and the things that we can do, of course, I think it's important to read the Bible and read about the church fathers and to study theology to some degree. But I also think it's important that we put it in the proper context. It's not for our own glory, but for the glory of the one who has saved us and everyone, including a bunch of wayward people who believe in Zeus and Hermes way back in the time of St. Paul. So may God bless you and keep you. Christ is risen. I hope you have a great day, and God willing, we will meet again tomorrow.